And we are live on Oz Property Investors. We bring the big names and we have the big fun. And it is the 4th of May. May the property fall. So we got Jen. This is going to be a huge session. So smash the like button, people. Get out there to all the good people. There's going to be heaps of value. I'm trying to talk too quickly. So how you going, Jen?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm fantastic. I'm bloody fantastic. I'm ready to go.
Jeff seems pumped anyway. I don't know about you, Joe. You need to lift those energies. Come on.
You didn't do a star jumps for the session. No, it's like pop us a comment, pop us a like, all that sort of. And if you're watching on YouTube, drop us a comment or a like as well. So Joe, yeah, there you go.
My favorite life hack. It's not even a life hack. It's just a joke you can play at play when you're doing all the Zoom calls. What you say is when you're ending the Zoom call, just hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That always gets a giggle. So that's what I was doing on
maybe do it one-on-one tomorrow. We do that.
Yeah, don't do it with your boss. Yeah, absolutely. Do not do it with the boss. But I'm super pumped for this one. This is going to be a true investor story. And that's exactly what this group was founded on. And Jen, you were one of the founding members. You must have been like member number 6 or something like that when you joined this group. Surely.
I think Jeff had a little look the other week actually to see where I was. Really? I think I was early on in the days, put it that way.
We should send out.
I'll claim number 3 after you guys if you want to give it to me. I have no issues.
You've added a heap of value to the group, and I love it. I appreciate it. All the energy and effort you put into it, Jen. So it's amazing. Thank you. But I'm pumped for today. How are you, Jeff? More importantly.
Yeah. I am interesting conversation with a broker today. So I'm you may know the show, but I'm keen to. I've got so much equity, just got equity for days, and just want to get some out because I sort of feel, man, I love sort of. I don't like putting. So yeah, found out some numbers. I've got to tweak the scenario, make it massage it a little bit, make it a little more enticing for a lender. But we'll get there. I'm excited. So day's been good though. I just. Just shared. Maybe I overshared too much there, but that's okay. But yeah, I'm good. And Jen, you've been great as well. You've been excited for this, and you're all ready to go. I'm interested to hear what you've got to share because there's going to be some bank safes and some $30,000 and you're sharing all about it. So people have to watch because you don't know what's going to happen next on this show. So Joe. Joe doesn't know now. He wasn't here. So
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. Saving 30% with the bank.
Grabbing 30K on 7%.
Oh, getting 30K off the bank.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm all for that. Yeah.
I was telling Jeff, it seems like I always seem to have just everyday dramas, like just things that don't happen to normal everyone else, if that makes sense. So, and I was telling Jeff, can I share like this story? And he's like, yeah, for sure. That'd be good. Okay. So there's always something fun.
Exactly. You got to keep you on your toes. Well, that was like today. I was walking down the street and I saw this Fruit Loop dressed as a Jedi. I was like, what the hell is happening here? And then I'm like, oh wait, and then I did the post today about your May the 4th be with you, and I'm typing away. I'm like, oh, May the 4th. I'm like, oh, that's why there was a bloody Jedi walking through the street. He was pumped. He was pumped for tonight because that's what today is all about. We're onto our quote of the week. Jen, what is your quote of the week? What is something you live by or love?
Well, I've made it Star Wars themed just for Jeff. I thought I'd make it Star Wars themed. So it's a Yoda quote because Yoda's wise and all those things, right, Jeff? You have to support me on this one.
Yeah. Probably was.
So Yoda's quote is "Do or do not. There is no try."
Oh,
that's deep.
Very good.
It's kind of like another quote that I like. You can't be half pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. There you go.
Let's put them in the same box, Jeff. Sure.
I'm not gonna be auditioning for Yoda anytime soon. Unfortunately, I don't.
Yeah, just as wise. Wise.
How about you, Joe? What was your quote of the week, or what is your quote of the week?
Well, one of the things I realize is, we're going through this group and we've got a lot of people, like we've been here going for like 2 years or something like that now. And one of the big things that I see people struggling with is actually just starting the journey and feeling like they need to have absolutely everything, all the crosses, all the T's dotted, all the I's done their thing, dotted, all the T's crossed.
Cross your T's, done. Yeah.
Yes. So this one is from Tony Robbins, and it is the only impossible journey is the one you never begin. You just have to, at some point, get educated enough. That's what this group is all about, educating you to a point. And then you are the only other person that's going to have to step off that ledge is you. And it's going to allow you to do whatever you need to, but it's going to be worthwhile. You might mess it up, but that's why we created this, so you can hamper that, so you don't mess it up as much. So yeah, that's mine. The only impossible journey is the one you never begin.
Oh, it's very positive, Joe. And Jenny there was a post that somebody was talking about, and they were saying that you're very positive and all this sort of stuff. And somebody's like, oh, but yeah, it was interesting. I saw that, Fred, and I commented on. Love the quote, Joe. Good one.
What about yours, man? What is your quote?
So mine is, whether you think you can or can't, you're right. So that's by Henry Ford. So it's kind of talks to, if you have the motivation and idea of something that is impossible, then you're right. You're absolutely right. That thing that you're thinking about, you won't be able to do it because you have that mindset. So it's very similar to your quote. So, and it's just interesting where people come to obstacles and they say, oh, and it's too hard, I can't do it. And it's like, well, you can't do it because that's the mindset that you're in. If you just say, well, how can I do this? It's something I'm big on, because when there's a brick wall in front of me, you can either just give up and sort of try, or you can sort of go around it, or you can climb over the damn wall as well. There's many different ways around the brick wall.
100%. And I actually see that a lot with like a lot of the investors that I deal with. Like, I was just dealing, like, a client of mine's got 6 investment properties and he's maxed out his borrowing capacity. And I'm like, so what happens when you max out your borrowing capacity? He's like, I get another broker because this guy can't service me. So he just figures a way out to make it exactly like what you're doing, Jeff, right? You just said, I can't get lending I've got a lot of equity, I can't get lending. So I'm going to organize my finances in a way that is attractive. So I didn't just take that first no. So I love that. I love that energy. And that's what you've got, Jen. That's why I'm pumped to listen to what you've got to say. You had 4 properties in 15 months? I'll
add to it for you guys for future reference, just in technical terms. It's a fixed versus a growth mindset. So in change management and some formal training back there, that's what the technicality is. So your fixed mindset or your growth mindset that asks how, your fixed mindset says I can't. That's it. I just thought I'd put a bit of technical in there.
Yes.
Carol Dweck is the author who wrote the fixed versus growth mindset.
Oh, I love it. Okay, well, we're going to jump into our ad, and then we're going to introduce this wonderful lady that we have in front of us, and then hear some investor stories. So
I'm excited. If you're excited, put an excited in the comments and give us a like.
Yeah, throw a thumb, throw something up there, because the more people that like this, the more people see it, and the more value that people get.
Maybe not throw tomatoes, though.
Don't throw tomatoes. This live session is sponsored by Scott Agate from Hello House. Scott has created the world's first property negotiation as a service business. So what does that mean? Well, let's think about it. When was the last time you negotiated on anything over $100, let alone a property that is going to be one of the biggest investments of your life? The vendor, they have a trained negotiator on their side in the form of a real estate agent. That's kind of like you stepping into the ring with Mike Tyson after never training a day of boxing in your life. These guys are trained professionals, and that's what they do day in and day out. And this is what Hello House does every single day as well. They negotiate on property to get the best buy price from the real estate agents. Scott Agate, he's the expert negotiator. He has been in this industry since 1995. He owned and operated 3 Bell franchises. Scott was the guy that was teaching these real estate agents all these agent games. He knows all of their tricks. Having him on your side is going to give you a massive unfair advantage and literally save you tens of thousands of dollars. Unlike other ways of purchasing property, Scott's incentives are aligned with you, the buyer, meaning the more money he saves you, the more money he makes, which is what you want. You need to have those incentives aligned. Scott has kindly offered our group a massive discount on the retainer fee for his service. So if you're looking to buy your next home or investment property, click the link below to get in touch.
Here we go, Joe. Good times. And Scott's all about motivation, getting started as well. But we're going to get into, this is one of the best bios that I've had come through. So and you, the way you describe it is just fantastic. So you said you are a mum to a crazy and beautiful 3-year-old. I know that can be. I've seen some of the crazy things that happen. You bought 4 properties. You said worth 2 million, and had a daughter, all within 15 months. I mean, it was a big year. It was a big year. Yeah, that was amazing. We're going to talk about how you did all that. Your full-time shift work in the rail and mining industry, which I think is amazing. Well, like good on you for being involved in that sort of sector, and just similar to even something like Jane Slack-Smith, the dynamite sort of sector, or she was in sort of mining as well. Investor,
I'm from Drill and Blast, originally from Drill and Blast, so I love Jane on that front as well.
Did she work in the same kind of sector?
Yeah.
Wow. There you go.
Oh, really?
Small.
I was gonna. It's like when you've got someone from another country, like, oh, do you know this person in the UK?
Yeah.
No, my wife.
Are you Australian? It's like you go, so you haven't seen Australian for a month, and you hear the accent, you're like, oh, where are you from? Yeah, you know, like you have a good old chat, and you say, oh, yeah. Anyway, and the thing that I think is interesting is that you've previously enrolled in a 12-month property mentoring program, which requires a JV during the program. So I'm actually interested to unpack that, because that'll be. Want to hear more about it, but we'll tease that. The audience has to stay towards the middle. Sorry, I'm sort of not so much a marketer. But first off, the question we want to actually, before I get into that, what is there anything I missed? Like, what's something I haven't said there that is exciting?
I don't know about the exciting part, but I don't know. A lot of people who know me and that I've been sort of friends in the industry for a while know that not long after buying the 4 properties and having my daughter, my daughter's dad and I separated. So to throw a spanner in the works, I guess, it's an interesting one where you gain assets in a very short period of time. You have a kid, life changes, and then all of a sudden it changes again. You lose half your assets, half your income, half your servicing, half your daughter's life. So there's a lot of change and a lot of interactions that are property related, family related, but at the end of the day, they're all just life, which we all doing at the same time, if that makes sense, and they have to run simultaneously, so they're all impacting each other. So that's probably the one thing I missed out of there.
Yeah. Okay. So how did you get started in property, like the property industry? Like what was your first, like, what got you into property? Maybe this is probably a better way to answer.
I can remember sitting on my parents' front step when I was 17. So I'll show my age here, but it would have been like 97. And the house across the road opposite was for sale. I remember it was $73,000. I still remember to this day. And this is in Mayfield, if anyone knows Newcastle, which median house price now is 900 grand or something crazy.
Wow.
And I've always from that moment loved property, and my parents, nothing to do with property. Dad just had BHP shares given to him. Like, there's no real drive from that perspective, if that makes sense. It was always just the old school super, someone gave me shares, yay, that's great, I can retire, like, I don't know, there was no real drive, I guess. And so I didn't have a lot of inspiration in that respect or support. But my parents did support me in the way that whatever house I moved to locally, when I moved out of mum and dad's back in the day, mum would always make sure that by Saturday afternoon she dropped over the domain out of the newspaper, Saturday's paper.
So what?
Back before domain was on the internet,
There was a time before the internet? No. I remember. Yeah, I remember a time when you used to have to stick a cord into a wall and dial up you have to take the phone out, and I was like, it's just make me sound old. That's so what is it that actually, when did you said you loved that house, or you saw that house across the road, but what is it how did you then sort of fuel that fire, given you didn't necessarily have any mentors, or what was the catalyst, or what was the light bulb?
It's a hard one, because why didn't I act? Because I didn't act until 15 years later, before I bought my first property from that point.
Yep.
Wow.
I think so. I studied though. I watched the market, I watched the trend in houses. It just became a hobby, I guess, but not one that I was actively involved in or had a hand in. Always from the sidelines. So I can't say why I didn't act. I think there was probably fear from lack of education as far as the world goes, and not being able to ask anyone. I didn't have, anyone I could ask. I didn't have an uncle. I didn't have anyone I could sort of go, hey, what's this like? Or when did you buy this? Or tell me your story about this. I mean, there was really
Yeah.
no guidance. So I just didn't really
Mm.
know where to start, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say an uncle or an auntie. Let's because I think there's heaps of aunties out there that own property as well. I mean, it sounds a bit, I don't know. I just like to call out the gender bias. I mean, but no, yeah,
Well done,
but
Jeff.
also yeah, but
Star.
let's unpack. So tell us about that first purchase. How did it all go, and like what was what did it look like?
So people know judgment on my choices, so let's tell it how it is. So I bought an off the plan townhouse, and I signed
Oh.
the contract in 2013.
Yep.
And I actually didn't settle until 2017. So it
Wow.
had that many delays. So we worked through like sunset clauses. Do we extend? So I learned a lot in that period alone.
Yeah.
But the developer,
4 years.
I built a fair relationship with the developer though. So I'm
Yeah.
a people person. So I go in. I don't just send an email or send a text. I like rocked up on his doorstep. If I had an issue, it wasn't the solicitors are fighting it out. I turned up on his doorstep and knocking on the door, sort of, not his personal house, his business. And so we probably created quite a decent relationship through that as well. So there's never anything lost, but it was understanding the issues. So he would explain to me exactly what they were. They had to dig up the road to put extra pipes in, and this was a delay. They had to move a bus stop, which I've seen since then, people discussing moving bus stops and stuff.
Wow.
So I guess you could say that I actually learnt, like, that time wasted between that wasn't wasted, because I learnt a lot through that process in itself.
And did the market move at that point as well? Because did you buy it at an agreed price?
Absolutely.
Like, this is a $300,000 purchase, and then we'll build it, and then you'll pay $300,000 when it's ready.
Yeah. So like all sunset clauses, I think Queensland's different, but in New South Wales, they need to get approval from the court and all that sort of jazz to get out of it.
What is a sunset clause?
My limited understanding.
How would you
where's my conveyancer? My amazing conveyancer that looks after all of these things for me.
Yeah, the audio's breaking up. Sorry. What's your experience with sunset clauses? Like, how would you explain it basically?
In New South Wales, and my experience, it comes down to a decision where you look at what that price is that you've bought in for, and the current conditions on that contract. And then you also look at what you stand to lose. So if you wanted to pull it, or if you wanted to give them an opportunity to pull it, what you would lose. That's what I did. So it was about requesting extensions and making sure we were on top of the requests for extensions. It was about accepting extensions when they were offered to me from the developer, rather than pushing back, stomping your feet. This is rubbish. Why is it taking so long? It was about understanding what I stood to lose if I was to rock the boat too much. So there was always a dance between bending and being flexible to move with it, because I knew I had a good deal, right? 4 years later, I had a good deal.
Yeah. And you've only paid like what was the deposit?
Yeah, so even better. So the government grants also changed as well. So I used this as my first home. My living circumstances changed, and my ex did own a house. So I would have technically lost it if I'd lived with him in that 4 years as well. So technically it'd be a de facto relationship. I wouldn't have been entitled to the grants. But at the signing of the contract, it was a $15,000 grant, which, yes, nowadays it's pretty standard. But there was a time around that 2017, 16, 17 where it wasn't. So if I had ended and started again, I stood to lose that, which was a big factor.
Okay.
No stamp duty as well, which we were paying stamp duty on existing homes at that time as well. So it was kind of like a $32,000 saving right from the get-go in taking those grants. I know there's some downfall with off the plan, but I wasn't I probably wasn't as educated now as what I was back then, but no regrets. I
Mm.
used that 32 grand.
So talk us through though your sort of was that basically you sort of saw the grants and you saw that it was what was the reason you decided, or what are some of the reasons you decided to go off the plan as opposed to existing?
Rob at Community First Credit Union, who was my first person that took me under his wing. Someone's always taken me under their wing. But I approached quite a few. I just kind of like randomly dropped into banks.
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds weird, but it was all about that relationship building.
Yeah.
And look, by the time I went to my third purchase, I still have rang in the other week the mobile contact number for the the whole of New South Wales state manager. So they're the relationships that I created through walking in, talking to people, and I was looking to buy a house. I thought I had the 20% deposit, all those things. And it was him that mentioned the grants to me, mentioned options. And I realized at that point that, I had enough for a 20% deposit. Yes, I could pay stamp duty on an existing property. Yes, I could forego the $15,000 grant. But by keeping my money in the bank, doing a 98% lend, including the LMI, which was built into the loan, using the grants, I was able then to keep my money for another property.
Yeah, you've got a big chunk of cash ready to go. Yeah. Not saying that's definitely the best way to do it, because you're not you're taking up borrowing capacity and serviceability at the moment.
Absolutely.
So what? So then after 4 years, so what did it look? What was the purchase price, and what was the end value when you landed it? Like, was there a substantial difference?
It wasn't a lot, but mine was the biggest in the lot. It's 100 square meter backyard in a townhouse. It was freestanding, the only one freestanding. The other one sold for, I think, about 70 grand more. So I bought for 440. They sold for 510, and they were a lot smaller, a lot crappier in the same complex by the time I settled. So there wasn't a lot of money in it. Joe, it's not perfect. Would I do that today? Probably not, but no regrets, right? I got in there, 100%. I did what I thought at the time was the best thing with the information I had at the time and my knowledge in that space.
Well, this is the funny thing. I was thinking about this just the other day. So my first purchase was through a buyer's agent that I shouldn't have gone through. All the red flags were there. They were the best buyer's agent ever. I didn't we've got that list of buyer's agents questions that you should ask. If you don't know what that is, maybe we'll pop it in the comments or something like that. There's a list of 20 questions you should ask a buyer's agent. And I had the worst experience ever. I had to spend $12,000 on new stairs. I had a $5,000 renovation that turned into a $22,000 renovation or something ridiculous. And it made me realize that every point there was something that went wrong that made me say, you know what, actually, I need to think about this for my next one. If this was just the smooth, clean, crisp, the best property ever that just went up in value, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm a king at this. I'll just do that again. And then I would really stumble because I've leveraged a lot more. So I think stuffing up at the beginning is awesome. Because then it makes you stop and reflect on where did it go wrong and how do I get better for the next one. Whereas if you just get a home run out of your first one, you don't put as much energy and effort into seeing where things went wrong, if that makes sense.
You start to think you're a legend because, Joe and I sort of were starting roughly around similar time, and as you, around sort of 2013, 2012, 2013, in the Sydney, which for those who know, the Sydney market absolutely kind of had a rocket come underneath it and probably we would have almost close to doubled our money if we'd have bought in that. I mean, I think you were looking in Sydney around that time as well, weren't you, Joe? Or what were you?
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of person, and I don't know about you, Jen, but if I sort of hit a home run straight up, I'm like, I can't lose. I'm the bee's knees. I'm my shit doesn't stink, all that kind of rubbish. So I think that I don't know about you, but because I sort of didn't quite nail my first purchase out of the park, it sort of made me reflect and sort of gave me a bit more rigor in my investment decisions, which I don't know, I think serves us better, arguably, even though 100%. It may take a longer path. It's maybe more sustainable, hopefully.
I would even say that I probably wouldn't be in, like, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in if I had a great property journey. Like, if my property journey was super smooth, then I probably wouldn't be doing what I do now, buying property for other people, because I just wouldn't have gone through that education phase.
Well, you probably wouldn't have met Jeff for a start, Joe. So that's the catalyst.
I wouldn't have met Jeff.
You wouldn't have gone to the Steve McKnight thing, because you would have been up on stage thinking, "Oh, I can make my own course after being a." But yeah, no.
So Jen, what was the second one? Okay, so. Well, I guess what was the biggest takeaway from that, actually? What was the key takeaway that kind of is that property for you? And then what does the next one look like?
The key takeaway from that is definitely the inability to add value, because I bought new, so I don't have it, and it's a townhouse as well. So there was limitations in doing anything to it really. On a plus, I think I spent $80 to fix a toilet lug, and it's the only money I've spent on that property in 5 years. So winning too.
Yeah, $80 toilet lug. Happy days. Okay, and was this the start of the 4 like that we were talking about? So you bought this one, and then what's it look like?
So what happened in that space was my daughter's dad sold his house that he owns with a mate, and it did free up a little bit of cash that helped out a lot. And he and I both had, when I say a little bit, I mean it wasn't a lot. And we both had some savings as well that we'd saved up, because obviously we couldn't act for that period of time. So you could have said there's missed opportunities, but so once that happened, he sold his. So we moved in February 2017. I think he sold his in April or something. And I'm trying to figure him out. So I remember getting a deposit bond or something, Deposit Power, I think was the company I used. Yep, so I learned about how the 10% settlement, when it goes unconditional, I learned all those things in the sale of his, really. And once I had that money, we put 20% down for a property in Manning Point. So that was maybe around September. By October, we did another 98% lend on a four-bedroom house at Cardiff, for anyone that knows Newcastle. And then I think, yeah, good call. Everyone's looking at Wall's End at the moment. There's something about that. And it's the next suburb over from where I actually live. And then in the November, we put an offer in for where this house here, which is a townhouse off the plan. You could say I made the same mistake again, but I love it here. And we put an offer in the November. They wanted $590, and we put an offer in of $560. They wanted a 10% deposit. We said $560, 5% deposit, take it or leave it, and walked away. They came back in the January, I think, from memory, just after Christmas.
So how long was it?
So like November, December. So from the offer to coming back, and they came back and said, if you still want it, it's yours, because they hadn't sold any yet off the plan. So I got in the second it got advertised. I think they wanted to float it a bit more. So I
got the market.
Yeah, and I knew. So where I bought this townhouse is in, if anyone knows Simpsons, or often call it the Simpsons reference of the Shelbyville side of Lambton. So you've got a main road, other side of Lambton. Right now you'll pay 1.5 mil for a 300 to 400 square property. You'll pay over $1 million for a knockdown. On my side of the road, housing commission, but I'm 2 from the corner. So it was $300,000 less to buy here, right on the outskirts of the crappy part, than it was to buy on the other side of the road. So I foresaw that this was happening, and it's happening now. I just didn't buy enough in this spot.
So you can see Springfield. You can literally you can put a hand.
It's just over the other side of the road.
Yeah, there you go.
Spot on.
Okay, so you're starting to see like that ripple effect, right? Starting to see it trickle in. The cafes are getting a little bit nicer on this side of the road, and people are starting to gravitate. You know what? Instead of paying $300,000 more, I might just take a little bit off. But I don't want to be in that area. I want to be on, close to this side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we bought this. So we moved in. So I got a special settlement. So I worked. I had my daughter at the end of May. So I worked my full-time 12.5-hour shifts right up until less than 48 hours before I gave birth. Jesus.
Wow.
But anyway, let's not go through that. There's a lot of sleeping on night shifts. And so we got special permission to move into here with an occupancy certificate. So they made a special effort, again, relationships, right? So they made a special effort to have ours done first. So we moved in here. My daughter was 2 weeks old, so let's just go mid-June. And then we settled, like financially paid the money and everything else, I think end of August from memory. So we moved in here and didn't pay anything, so that was a bonus. We rented out the other place, so we got a bit of extra cash, so take what you can.
So that was the so from when I'm thinking this. So which month of 2017 did the first one settle?
February 2017, first one settled, and then moved in early June 2018 into the fourth purchase.
Wow, that
busy.
is yeah, sort of yeah. So what was the cat? Why did you decide that? Hey, look, now's the time. I'm going to go on a buying spree. What was the kick up the backside? Kick up the backside to get it done. Learning
about LMI, and I don't advise it to most people. I'm happy to talk about later what my strategy was in reducing that risk. So let's just say we don't advise everyone goes and does that. But it was learning that. So it was learning that I had a pool of money and I had a period of time before I had a dependent and wasn't going to be working. And that financial year then would have been, I won't say stuff because it sounds like I'm being mean to my daughter. Bless her. But that financial year was always going to haunt me. So, it was going to carry forward. So, in this financial year, X happened, it haunts you because they want to see your previous year's tax returns and things like that. And I had no income for 6 months. I was off work for 9.5 months. So I knew that was happening. So I had a window, I had money, I had servicing, and I had a window before all of that was going to change. So I just made the most of it. And yeah.
Super interesting. What I like about that is it was just a mindset shift, right? Obviously, you've got that pressure there. That's real pressure. But you could easily fabricate that pressure for yourself. Obviously, not make it as stressful as I imagine it would have been. But like you said to yourself, oh my gosh, I have this window. I've got to actually action this. I wonder if you could, I don't know, could you do that for without having the pressure of it? I don't know.
Well, see, because of the first homeowners grants and things like that, and because it was solely in my name and had to be, I risked that servicing, even though we moved to joint names. So if I'd have bought in that window, I risked not being able to settle on mine off the plan in 2017.
Yep.
If that makes sense. So I kind of knew, are you nodding Jeff? I'm thinking you're sort of getting what I mean, because even though
you were hamstrung, because if you did try and buy another one, then you'd risk it because you're in there for 10% or whatever the deposit. Yeah.
I'm not responsible for a servicing perspective. So just say my ex and I bought 2 properties before I settled on the one that had to be in my name solely to get the grants and the loan had to be. I then, because I'm solely kind of seen as responsible for servicing for those other 2 loans, even though they're in shared, and he can't go on that third loan. I couldn't buy 2 properties before. If he could go on the third loan, which was the one off the plan that I bought, then we would have just potentially bought more 12 months before. But we couldn't. We were really hamstrung by that time frame.
So hang on. If you bought the off the plan and it took 4 years to go through, if you bought so you put your money down to say, I'm going to buy this off the plan with the government grants, and it takes 4 years, it means you can't buy a property within that period because you'll give up $30,000 grants. Is that right? You can't?
Probably.
It sounds crazy. It sounds a bit crazy. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying it's how it was at the time.
No, it's not. It's not a go at you at all. But
so if my ex hadn't bought a property before, if he was buying the one
Yeah.
off the plan with me on the loan,
Yeah.
then it would have been fine because it had the double servicing. But if I was
Yeah.
half loaned on other two properties, I don't get half the debt. I get the full debt responsibility wise, if that makes sense. And then I'm applying
Mm.
on my own solely for
Yeah,
that, for, you know, whatever loan. Yeah.
I've never actually
Oh.
thought about that, because if you
Yeah.
are a first home buyer, and let's just say because some of these developments do take 2 to 3 years to build and get it done, because particularly with delays with supply. If somebody goes and you are somewhat, I think, locking yourself in to some extent, because I imagine if you it's just interesting.
Never thought of
course,
that. I never thought about that either. Like
another con
I had
to an
another con for house and plan. This is what we're at. We actually created this group to stop all house and land purchases. But I guess it's because it's such a shock for me, and you as well, Jeff, because it's not an asset that we look at as an option. But that's super interesting. That I never thought about it. But did you think about it at the time, like when this was all going on? Were you like, oh shit, actually, I'd really like to buy another one?
Yeah, so we actually put a deposit down on one. It was like right. I remember being in the PRD right in the office there, and I'd paid the holding deposit on this unit, which was a great buy, but it was still a unit. Let's not go there. But yeah, it was a really good unit in Warners Bay. And we'd negotiated such a good price, and it was rented for $340 a week already. We got them down to $275 purchase price. And we got them to include all the brand new display stuff, so the fridges, all that jazz. I negotiated that in. So the couches, like I kind of, but then at the last minute, it was like there was still that risk of not getting the other one. Should I have just risked it? Hell yeah. Should I have found another lender? Absolutely. It would have worked with, because the contract for the first homeowner stuff, it only went on the contract. So the fact that I signed on that contract date, no matter what I did in between to when I settled, made no difference. I could have gotten married, I could have done whatever. It's based on the contract date. So there's never any risk of losing that as such. My ex and I are now on a property, it looks like this. That was never an issue. It was purely down to servicing. But like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, look, I've made these wonderful. I watched some of the lives on here and I think, oh my God, what a great decision. It was the first choice, that they've done well straight out the back. I didn't. But at the end of the day, that property's just been valued at $670,000 and it rents for $530,000, which is below market. It rents for $530,000. That's the first one.
What did it first rent at? You said it's $540 or $570, but what did it first? Do you remember back that long ago?
The very first property I bought off the plan.
Yeah.
So I lived in it for 12 months. Not 12 months. I lived in it for whatever that period. Yeah, well, till June. From December 2017 until June. Yeah. So I had to do the time and that sort of stuff, but no regrets, hey, because as I said, 440 versus 670, it's not the end of the world. Had I bought a land that I added value to in 2014 or 13 or whatever it was when I signed it, I probably would have been way better off. But at the end of the day, I'm here. I can't go back there, so I'm not going to live there and just move on. We go, well, that's great. I've got a stack of equity. What do I do with that now? I can't go back.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's
100%.
Yeah. The change. I mean, what is your what was your motivation or inspiration for investing, Jen? Why did you invest? Or why are you investing?
I'd love to. I feel like I really need a good reason. I don't have one. I just love property.
You don't need a reason. You can just say you love property. Yeah.
I think, and I think I love that it gives me a space. So in my day job for the last 10 years, I'm in operations. I'm in day of operations, right? So something happens, I fix it then and there on the spot. There's no real goalpost to doing anything fancy. You're just someone reacting constantly. So I think it also gives me a space where I can set goals, I can strategize, I can do those things. And some people might get that filled in other areas in their day jobs or something like that. I don't have that fulfillment. I'm a bum in a chair for a period of time, and when shit breaks, I get it fixed then and there. And so there's not much strategy about that. It's a lot of experience, obviously, because in the moment, you're dealing with people's lives and safety and trains and all sorts of crazy stuff. But I think that we might be onto something there, because I was wondering this myself, because it's not about the money, because I couldn't care less. I think it's just about being able to set goals and strategize and build strategies and learn something that you're super passionate about and you enjoy. I think I think it's as simple as that.
I'm just going to say I care about money. And I'm okay that I care about money. No, well, I care about the options that money gives. I mean, I don't necessarily sleep on a pile of money, but yeah, I care about the freedom and the opportunity it can give. But that's interesting. So you said strategy and goals. What is it? What is your strategy? Or what do you what do you want your strategy to be, or what is it? I suppose.
I think it's always been for probably the last 10 years at least, if not a little bit longer, has always been not working day job past 50, having a house that has no mortgage, like I live in, with no mortgage, and having 100K. You know, I'm happy with gross. I don't need net. I don't need to be rich because I've got no mortgage, right?
Yeah.
I think from a dollar value, if people want to know dollars, that's what it is. But from a personal perspective, it's just not being on anyone else's time. It's not someone saying you need to be at work at this time. It's not, for my day shifts, I get up at 4:30 in the morning. For my night shifts, I don't start until, 5 p.m. in the night time, and I'm working until 6 a.m. I just don't want to do that.
If anybody loves being somewhere at a certain time, please. I mean, we're not going to get any comments on that one, but yeah, I'm sure there's probably people that do love that, but I don't know. I don't love it either.
100%. No, well, that's what like the financial independence that whole FIRE movement is as well, right? Like people want to have choices in their life, and like even looking back, like sure off the plans, and definitely, like, I mean, you said it yourself that you don't recommend off the plans, neither do I, not financial advice, but you would have put down a deposit of what, 10% or something like that. So
yeah. I negotiated $10,000 deposit on the 440, which is the first one. And again, 5% deposit only on the second one. So I paid $560 for the second, so 5% of that, because I wasn't parting with any more money because I needed it to buy all the other properties.
yeah, exactly. You kept your capital good. So I mean, you have like $10,000 deposit, and then you bought an asset that's worth 500,000, let's just say, and now it's grown to 640,000. So you've used $10,000, and in 5 years, over a period of time, you've got $120,000 worth of value. Like, just because you leveraged and put the hard yards in that however many years ago to be able to do it. Like, those are crazy returns for such a small amount of money.
Well, this one here, I've actually just got the value today because I'm in the middle of refinancing, so that was fun. So this one here, we paid $560. We got a stamp duty grant, like $5,000 off, which is nothing, but I wouldn't have got that in an existing. So we still got that government, $5,000. Yeah, take it if it's there.
Days.
And so the 560, and this was a bank val that came back today, and it's Bank of Queensland. They're not going to be that kind either, if that makes sense.
Queenslanders. Name you Queenslanders. We're going to belt you this year. Origin, by the way. Queensland. That is.
There you go.
I agree with you, Jeff, but I won't get into the football side. I know property better than I know football. And this place was valued, so I looked at the val today, 800,000.
Yeah.
So 560 to 800.
If you want to think of leverage, because I bought in at such small amounts, that leverage is I paid 96. I got this one at 96% lend, I think. It was 96. It was a weird amount. I can't remember what the limiting factors were. I was pregnant. Who knows? It's all a bit of a blur.
Probably because you had to keep it. You probably would have had to have kept it below. So it was probably 95% plus LMI lend. So you likely had to keep that the no LMI amount below 95%.
Potentially, yeah, for whatever reason. So
anyway,
Jeff probably processed the loan, to be honest.
You probably should have.
I love that. Okay, so I guess looking at your kind of your strategy, like what would be your next ideal type of property? Like what's next? Or what would you go next if you had, like, actually you're re-leveraging now, right? You're refinancing now. Like, what are you looking at? What's kind of out there for you?
So I have some weird and wacky ideas. So there's a
Here we go.
pocket. There's a pocket near where I live now that I want. There's a pocket.
Okay.
So earlier this year, I think it was, I contacted my local buyer's agent mate here in Newcastle. He's amazing. He always just takes my calls. He's just amazing with his information. And said, look, what can I do? I want these houses, one of these in this row here that's got this view that you can see the Newcastle beach. And they're just shacks. They're just housing commission shacks, and they're on 700, 800, 900 square blocks. I want these properties. How do I get them?
I do too.
I'm not telling anyone.
Yeah, exactly. The next comments will just light up with where.
where. So not telling.
Oh no, that's the comments.
Oh. So I spoke to my buyer's agent friend. I said, how do I do this? And he said, you put some makeup on, Jen, you put your daughter on your hip, and you go and knock on their door. So I've done some prelim work earlier this year with a town planner. One of the ladies in this group who's amazing, ex-town planner. She's always a little bit of guidance there too. So she's
plug
amazing.
If you want. What's if you want to.
Leanne. Yeah. So whether she's watching or not. So I think I had a convo with her because I thought she was still town planner, but she's moved to the other side, the flip side of town planning. And so I contacted a town planner. So I've had all the initial things done on a row of houses. I've found out buyer's agent got me some data when they last sold, in 1991, like stupid numbers. He thinks it was when the housing commission, like the government gave people that were living in housing commission houses the opportunity to buy, which might not be here nor there, but if I'm rocking up on someone's door, I want to know who's living there and what their story is, right? Because that's what it's all about. So I have a little bit of a crazy idea. Call me crazy. I know Joe's not going to like it. I think you might support me, Jeff. We'll see. So the concept's there. I've checked with the town planning, development side of things. I think the only thing that's going to get me over the line is a long settlement, like 10 years, 5 years, whatever it is. So whatever they want. What? That's what I'm saying. They're crazy, wacky ideas. I'm not saying it's going to work, but I'm trying to work out. I know the age of the people that live there. I kind of, I drive by, I get the feel. I change my walking track just to walk past there, just to do a wave every now. I'm getting these houses, right?
You know the name of their dog, perhaps, or their cat?
No, not yet. My neighbour was just saying, my neighbour texted me. She's like, so I saw the guy from that house that you want. He talks to such and such. He's got a mate on the corner. So we're all over it. But anyway, it's so what I would like to do is stick a granny flat on the back. And as I said, everyone's gonna look at me like I'm crazy. So get permission to stick a granny flat on the back there. I'm happy to give them their money with a lease back option for 5 years. I'm working on not knowing them, but I'm working on, they probably don't want the money. They don't want to move. So how can I bridge that between, an 80-year-old? How do I bridge this? How do I get this property, right? And how do I get enough from it to pay the mortgage so that it's sitting there? It's mine. I can chill out with life and I can move on with other plans. But until I have somewhere I know I can just knock down and build my dream home, I'm still kind of very stuck at the moment. Do I want to go and buy one for $1.8 million? No, I don't. I can't. I can't service it. But if I have the income of $550 from the granny flat I put on the back, that's going to cover that mortgage, and like a lease back option of $300 a week or whatever, that's going to pay that mortgage in that time. And then when I'm ready in 3, 4, 5 years, I can do something with it. If I choose to develop it, I'll make a lot of money out of it. And I like the granny flat because it's there. It's income when I want it, and when I don't want it, it's family.
Two things. One, why would I not love this?
I'm waiting for it, Joe. I'm waiting for it.
This is an awesome idea. This is you getting incredibly creative to get the thing that you want. I love this.
Absolutely.
What kind of reception do I put out there on the internet? This is terrible.
Well, you didn't like my off the
okay.
plan, so I was kind of like, I don't know if it's just going to be,
Yeah,
we don't like what Jen does, or if there was
no,
going to be.
is this a Jen thing or an idea thing? No, we don't like off the plans. You knew that was coming. But this is awesome. I love this idea. So what exactly are you? So you've got an 80-year-old in the dwelling. I like this idea because there was another property scheme going on previously. It's like a tech platform that they created where you could buy out portions of the individual's property. So like an older person who wants to go on a caravan holiday has all their money stocked away in their house. So they're equity rich, but cash poor. So like if you can jump in there with like 50K and say, you know what, you should go on a massive holiday, you should get a caravan and go all on there. And then as soon as you want to sell this property, you sell it to me. Like a 10-year option is like what were you thinking? What do you so yeah, I don't know. What are you thinking? What do you think is going to be the best way? What's going to do this? I'm invested now.
I'm not 100% sure. So
And how
I
many
don't
are there?
know.
Like,
I don't know
there's
what's
like
going to do
4?
it, but so the one I want's about 700 square. That's the one I really want. I don't know why. That's the one. But there's one 2 doors down that's about 900 square. So
That
it's kind of, so it's, no, everyone go away from my properties. Get away.
Yeah.
So I figured so now I have the support as well. So the team that I'm working with in this mentoring program, one of the best things about them is they're creative people. So if you were to think like what I'm talking about, that's something I've just thought of my random self and thought, how the hell do I do this? Obviously, can I develop the land? I need to know that first, or it's just out completely. So I did all those initial, but the strategy side of it really stumps me, as far as like just knocking on someone's door. I'm afraid of that rejection for a starters, because I feel like once they say no, my dream's gone. What do I do then? So this mentoring program is very much supportive of different ways of thinking, creative thinking with property, of course, because it's a property course. But they've seen a lot of these random, like you're talking, Joe, there's just different outside the box deals, and their deals are always about win-wins, which I love because they're here. I don't want to win and have someone else screwed over in the process. It's just not who I am as a person. I think there's enough win-wins in this world. But it's about how to negotiate and how to identify what questions to ask, and how to actually really approach that, and what contractually they've done in the past with different deals. And they've done a lot of these, just out of the box deals that they don't talk about. They don't, they're very much, that's what they do. They look for a problem, they find a solution, or, they offer a solution to a problem that someone didn't even know they had, So that's hopefully with them supporting me, I'll have a little bit more chance of how to go about this. And not being limited to one property. I think there's a few options there that I'd be happy with. And if I get all of them saying yes, we just develop the whole.
Well, the interesting thing that you're talking about there, and I know Joe's going to have about 15 questions on this, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert on these kind of things, but because I haven't necessarily done one, but I listen to a lot of.
You probably can't call yourself an expert then,
well,
mate.
No, exactly. So but the American type podcast, the Bigger Pockets, they are very creative with the way to do real estate in the US. So I hear about these. Once there's a podcast called Bigger Pockets, and just listen, I'm like, well, you can with a property, you can almost negotiate practically anything. You can, and then you just get it drawn up in a contract. Of course, it has to be legal, so make sure you're sort of dotting your I's, crossing your T's legally. But as long as both parties agree to it, and the solicitor makes sure everything's above board, all that. You can do joint ventures with the owner, and say, if you don't even have the funds to be able to fund it, you can. I mean, you have to probably pay for the DA or whatever it is. But yeah, there's just so many creative ways that you can, if you don't have money, or if you don't have time, or if you have the expertise but not the money, there's just a heap of different strategies.
I'd like to hear in the comments, what would you do in this situation? We've got a block of eight places. There's 8 places to choose from. There are 8 different demographics of people in there. How would you go about getting this property?
I love it.
I'm
I've almost thought of putting this on a what would Steve do? But I'm always a little bit nervous about like it because I don't have anyone now. I've got the mentors, but you know, it's a big deal when you have an idea and it's not something that's mainstream, and you know, you put it out to a forum and it's either a really shit idea, or it's misunderstood, and you just walk away feeling like an idiot, and it kind of squashes all your plans. So there's always that. How do I ask this? And then sometimes you just go, no, back yourself. I'll just throw it out there.
Well, that's it. And one of the things as well, this is what happens with me and everybody, is exactly what you just did with me. You know, Joe, you're going to think this is a stupid idea. And then that's what I think everyone else is thinking about my ideas as well. And then it's only until we throw it out there that we realize, no, actually, this is a creative solution. Like, people are getting excited about this. And this is why we created the group. This is why I think these type of questions, this is why I always say there's no stupid question, because wherever you're at, someone else has been at that point in time as well. So we are all here to learn and grow. And wherever I am right now, there's always someone bigger. There's always someone that knows more than you. And that's how this little melting pot helps people grow and get better. So I'm all for the stupid ideas, because this is where the creativity is. I want to pop a granny flat on the back and do a lease back and have a 10-year settlement. These are you're trying to figure out what you want. Oh, hats off to you.
Well, there's more to it. There's more to it.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, what?
So the dream home has to be 2-story, but I also need to pay it off in 10 years, right? So I'm aiming, I have all my dollar figures going around. I mean, of course, they're based on today's, but you've got to start somewhere, right? So I figure that I can actually make it happen if I can service, and I've got 640 servicing. So if I buy it for 800, I've got the deposit. So I can kind of get to that point. And keep my other 2 properties. So I know that I can actually do that with a lender. So I'm at that point. So I've gone tick, you know, this is possible. Because I need to be prepared if one of them comes up for sale tomorrow, right? I'm not missing out on that.
Have you got alerts? Have you got alerts set up on Domain and real estate?
I don't need alerts. I will know. I will know. There's enough little squirrels out there. I will know. So the other side of it too is I want to also have self-contained, probably 2-bed underneath the back of the house. So if I was to design the house in my head, it's got the front living, so it's got everything facing out towards the water, and then the granny flat bit at the back. It's got enough. It's very wide. So all three next to each other are very wide. So enough to have a driveway on one side and a side pool. So I want a pool on the other side. And underneath the house, only it just needs to be enough for a quick dip. And I actually had a dream. I had a vision many years ago, and I didn't know what it meant. But anyway, let's not go into my wacky, weird stuff. And then underneath, so because I'm only a few minutes from, John Hunter Hospital, Mater Hospital, there's a lot of options for Airbnb. So as a way to pay that off, and I've crunched the numbers, if I can get $550 from the granny flat, which is reasonable, you know, I know what rentals are and going for, and I can get like an average of $300 per week. That's an additional $850 to $900 maybe that I can get to help pay my mortgage down. So whatever I'm paying where I'm living now, plus that $850 a week would pay 1.485. I think I worked out something like that off in 10 years. And then I have the income. So then I can choose to have the $550 a week rent income. And I can choose whether I want the 300, whether I want to Airbnb it, whether I want to lease that downstairs that's segregated. I potentially also have that income. I know, maybe I'm weird.
Yeah.
I don't
know. No. I'm all about 3 incomes. I'm all about 4 incomes if we can get them. One thing that you said there was, I'm near the hospital so I can get a good Airbnb. So what other things... Like, have you looked into the Airbnb space? Like, that's something I don't think people think about when they're thinking about an Airbnb. Am I close to the hospital? Are there any other areas that this is very much off topic?
Public transport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Public transport, university. I find that and this is my experience locally here. you find a lot of doctors will come and do placements and things like that. So
Definitely,
the
yeah.
hospital's not like Airbnb, like we're visiting people. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people that are happy to pay a decent amount of money that can catch public transport because, believe it or not, doctors they don't want to drive. You know, they're tired, they've been working shift
Especially if
work.
they're on placement.
If it's a 2-minute or 3-minute bus ride from that hospital straight down and they're in, they do that. So I guess, I mean, and it's also Newcastle. I mean, at the end of the day, we're 5 minutes from the beach. We're 10 minutes from the lake. So at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's a holiday destination all in one as well, you know. So there's a lot of factors, and I think the public transport and all those there's a bus stop, you know, 50 meters away, if that. So
So Ken, about you talked about, and I think it's a very interesting idea, and I think there's the creativity because you can actually, if the Airbnb side of things kicks off, or you sort of do that, you can potentially increase your serviceability if you can show over a certain amount of time. You probably noticed talking to a broker over a couple of years. But the question I wanted to ask is Newcastle. You bought and you focus mostly on Newcastle. Have you thought about going outside of that area, or it's just where you feel comfortable? I'm just interested. Yeah.
if I did, it would be through because I bought in Manning Point, which is my north coast.
Oh, yeah.
But that was a
Sorry.
holiday house, so that doesn't really count. Even though it's a great investment, it's increased the stack and it rents fine. So, but I would always go a buyer's agent. I was looking at Adelaide probably about 2 years ago, but you know my circumstances have changed so much. The buy and hold doesn't work for me as a single parent, income wise, servicing wise. You know, the buy and hold doesn't work. I'm 40 and I want to retire by 50. So, like people, you know, like we were saying before, Joe, you know, someone might have, you know, thought, oh, I'm 39 years old, my income's just halved, my assets have just halved, my dreams out the window, see you later.
Yeah.
And I just went, I ain't letting that go. How do I make it work? How do I do this? And that's when I started to get creative because I have to. If I can't, I don't see a way that I can buy and hold with the limitations. And I also don't think I'm patient enough anyway. I like it just set so I can just, you know, I know it's just going to smooth sail till there. So yeah, if I did, I'd use a buyer's agent. I think the opportunities in there, I've invested at the moment. JV in Adelaide, I think at the moment is where I'm at. So you can still invest in other markets without tying your money out, without investing, without losing your servicing, but still be involved in other markets where people and utilizing people in that market's knowledge. So I might find one here in Newcastle, for example, because that's my area of expertise. It's where my contacts, it's where all the people are.
Yeah.
But I might do that where someone else has established all of those in an area, if that makes sense. So I'm not limiting my options. I'm just choosing that this is where my knowledge base is, and I'm cool with that.
You've just piqued Joe's interest, I think, when you mentioned JV in Adelaide. What you wanted to ask about that, Joe?
Do you want the address? No,
No.
It's already in the works.
Yeah. So, yeah, can we talk to that? Because what you're saying to me is, what you're saying to everyone is that you're out of the serviceability is really hard, and buy and hold is very difficult. And now what are you doing to overcome that? Right? You still want to get cash and equity. You're doing a joint venture.
Absolutely.
And
so
this
I'm a private lender for a joint venture, but this will be so. This is my second private lend for a joint venture. So I'm a party to that.
I bet I know.
But there will be JVs down the track.
Have we had this person on a live session that is your deal finder?
Well, it's not really a deal finder.
Have we had her?
Oh, maybe. I feel like I need to go and ask her now or text her. Hang on a minute.
I bet we have.
Oh, I was thinking of something else.
If she's if she is the lady that I work with, she's amazing. And I've had a boss many years ago. I always find little snippets of quotes or just things that have stuck with me throughout the years.
Second quote of the week.
Yeah. And one of a boss many years ago, I think it was when I was blowing things up in mines, said to me, be someone that people want to sell to, want to buy from, and want to do business with. And it's stuck with me. It's always stuck with me. So she's somebody that I'd buy from. She's someone I'd sell to, and she's someone that I'll do business with any day of the week. And that's people I want to work with. That's,
Okay, cool. Well, without going into the specifics of the deal and who the person is and all that stuff, what can you talk to, like, what this looks like for somebody else if they were to get into this? Because what we're talking about here is you've got a lump sum. Let's just say you have $100,000 and you can't leverage that into property right now because of serviceability and that you're trying to buy your dream home, but you've got this sum of money right here while you're waiting. So there's somebody else. Is there somebody else out there doing developments or renovations on a property? And you're saying, here's my $100,000. I'm going to give you this. And then you can go develop this land, and then I get my $100,000 back plus $20,000, or a fixed, like, there's also fixed percents. Like, I don't want to, like, share as much as you're comfortable with sharing, but it would be cool to talk to that process so people can understand what it looks like.
So I'm an opportunist. It's a Facebook post. It is me deciding. I think Jeff might have been one of your questions, or might have been yours, Joe, that said, what are you going to do this year? And I said, I'm going to learn to relax and just chill out. My money's in the bank. I don't have to do anything. Well, that lasted. Yeah. I tried so hard too.
I can't do that either. Yeah, I just get bored.
It's hard. It's the hardest thing. I find it the hardest part is to do nothing. It is so hard. So I refinanced because I just knew in that boom I wanted to release equity. I might not have a job in next year. Who knows? Nothing's ever guaranteed. Whilst I wanted to, whilst interest rates were low, I wanted to borrow that money. If it sits in the offset, so be it. If I need it for something, it's there. I just wanted it out of there. It just stood no purpose at 2% interest rate.
Locked away.
Not borrowing that. It's just crazy. It was in my mind. It was just crazy. So I refinanced that. I've got I don't know how much I actually got. I had a bit of savings, a bit of other bits. So I saw a Facebook post in a group, and it said, need 150K. 2-month deal, need 150K. Mm-hmm. So it was basically a DA. So just so people understand the process that I went through, if you guys want to.
Yeah, please.
From that point, because it's quick turnaround, you're going to make a call. It was a sale. I'll do it to my best of remembering it. It was a sale. They had a contract of sale. The DA went slightly over. But they had the contract of sale and a 60-day settlement, right? Because it had gone over, they had an investor that needed out because that was the promised date. Whatever it was, and they just needed to tie it over until the final settlement, right? They needed to buy out that investor, basically, or give them their money back.
Yeah.
And so I looked at how it was. So I looked at. I feel like I'm giving away all my little secrets here. But
I mean, I don't know how. I don't even know how I would get into this situation. Like, this is a very opportunistic, like.
Just working with people. People know you. I don't know relationships. Yeah.
I can.
So, well, don't worry. As soon as I told my broker, she's like, "Oh, I can sort stuff up. I can sort things for you as well. You can go through me." I'm like, "Oh God, now everyone wants the money." So I ended up negotiating a set amount for that 2 months. So the way I looked at it was there was ways to minimize the risk. And I've just lost you guys, so I don't know if my headphones have.
Can you hear me?
I can still hear you.
Oh yeah, no, I got you back. So businesses, like, and I know business and risk and things like that. So a business can turn around tomorrow and go bankrupt, and there's no liability, right? So there's a proprietary limited company. So that was a big question of mine. So the contract is in a personal and the company name. Tick, because that's personal liability. There's then other things like deeds to personal houses, the credibility of the people that you're working with and what they stand to lose, and if it's more than you by doing a bad deal. So you look at, and anything can go south, right? So you're going to I had to be prepared to go with the worst. What's risk management? What's the worst thing that could happen? And what's the likelihood of it happening? So I had to run through, and this is all within like 24 hours. There's a lot of stuff going on, probably a 12-hour shift as well amongst that. So the risk mitigation, I felt I ticked a lot of the boxes, but I felt a percentage per annum wasn't in line with the risk because it was only 2 months. It's a short period of time, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
if you're
If they
getting
give you a, that's a great point, actually. If they give you a
absolutely,
30%,
the risk is still
40%
the
per
same.
annum, yeah.
The risk is still the same, right? So if you've got, let's just call it 10 because 10's easy, everyone can number it. So if you've got 10% per annum, and that sounds like a great deal, right? Like 10% is a good
Fantastic.
deal. But if
It's a
you
lot. Better than a
divide
bank.
that dollar value, or if you divide 10% almost by 12, you divide the end dollar. So let's just say you've got 150 grand. Let's just say that it was 10% per annum. So you're making a $15,000 profit. But if you divide that by 12 and times it by 2, you got not even 2.5 grand. You take away tax to risk giving someone that much money to get that little return, especially after you paid your tax. To me, it wasn't worth the risk. So I negotiated a higher amount and I set some return. And I don't talk to anyone about these things. Like this is just, I just had to work through stuff in my own brain really quickly, and what I don't know. So that's what I ended up doing. So I ended up saying, well, what's my after tax for starters? Because we often forget that, right? I'm in the highest tax bracket there is. What is it after tax? I sent the contract to my conveyancer and was like, it's like a standard this contract, but can you just have a quick look? Tell me your personal opinion. There's no professional advice here. Again, relationships. I send them a lot of business, a lot of recommendations. So people are often, I ask a question, often they'll help me out. I don't normally have any issues, and I don't abuse it either. Just things like that, just little things. So I negotiated a higher, what would have worked out higher than the actual rate that they offered, because of that risk. Anyway, sorry, that was a little bit
And they
long.
needed it. Yeah, and they needed it. So you just set up a fixed fee amount, was it, in the end? Or did you end up going with
For
a
that
larger
2 months.
Yeah,
For
you
that
just
2
said,
months, it was just a
I'll
fixed
do
fee.
this. It's going to take 2 months, and I'm going to give you, 150 grand, and you're going to give me 170 grand back in 2 months. Those type of things, whatever the number is.
Yeah, because they had a contract to sale too. So often
Yeah.
in like a development, things blow out. But this had a contract to sale. It had an end date. So I think I still wrote a little clause in after there that after that date, it was money to come back and to be renegotiated, the terms. Just because I figured that if they have a contract to sale and that's what my money's for. My money's for this deal. I don't want anyone using my money for anything else. So I don't want it to be like, oh, the deal went over. It was my test of the waters, if that makes sense. It was a test of how this would go down and a learning. And then I've gone back in again. Now, once I got all my money back, I think she got it back like 2 days later with an extra bit of savings added on top.
See, this is just such a creative way of going about, like, just seeing an opportunity and then running the numbers, not getting too scared. Like, obviously, it sounds like there's always fear and there's always something, but you're always like, okay, yeah, this is brand new to me, but how do I overcome this challenge? Like, what are the options here? And it sounds epic. Like, that's a great way to look at it. And now you've got a relationship with these people, and now you can continue running these type of deals, and then they trust you as well, because because the hardest thing with someone that does deals is someone that's very difficult to deal with, that you don't want to be that type of person that's like, oh, hey, it's
I didn't message once to ask how the deal was going. Not once. The money, she just messaged me on the D-Day and said, hey, do you want your money back? And I said, it sounds weird, but for some reason I want to see it back in my account. Then you can have it back, I'm sure, straight away.
Yeah,
that's fair enough. Yeah. I like to see it come back as well. Just to know that it still exists.
I didn't know if that was weird or standard, but my brain just wanted that, and I'm not afraid to ask if that's what I want to know.
I want to know it's real. I want to see that plus that amount, and then you can have it back.
And add it. And I'm sorry for the extra paperwork and transactions involved, but this is what's going to help me sleep tonight. So.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think it's important. I like to see that big money in my bank account too. Should we? I think there's heaps more.
I feel like I've rattled on for a long while. Sorry, audience. Sorry, guys. I go on tangents. So.
Don't be sorry. No. I think Joe's kind of drove. Then I think it's very interesting for people to sort of see that there is, and of course, like we could even do a whole session. I could talk through you could talk through the questions you should be asking around that sort of thing, just on security. And I think you nailed all those points anyway. So But
Did I get it right, Jeff, in your perspective? I know you've been doing some stuff.
I'm certainly not. I wouldn't say I'm 100% an expert, but I have done a couple of these kind of deals, and yes, I think it seems like you're on the right path. You're actually probably gone a couple of steps deeper than what I would have gone because, I usually do things purely on a joint venture agreement. I wouldn't, but you should really go down the path of asking people to see what their assets are and sort of even taking a caveat on another property that they own, because in that way, if things
it does.
Really
my contracts do. So there is a caveat on the personal.
So you're
property.
Going next level. Yeah. So in that way, if things did fall over, there is actually some assets there for you to claim back the money that you have invested, provided everything's been documented. Yeah. So
believe it or not, I think it is actually, for me, it sounds opposite to risk mitigation, which is crazy. But if I did this with 30 grand or something like that, I still think I'll be devastated I lost my money. The amount's probably, even if I lost 150 grand, it's not going to change my life that much that I can't eat tomorrow. Like, I'd never risk that much, right? You can only risk what you can afford to lose. But I think knowing that it was enough money that it would be worth pursuing through the courts if I had to, also helped me go, it's not going to be one of those points where I'm just going to have to write off the 10 grand and go, you put it down to, experience and that's it. I think the sum of money, I knew that it would be absolutely worth pursuing if ever I had to.
Yeah, okay. That's a great way to put it.
It might not sound, but that's the way I looked at it.
Yeah, are you going to chase after 10 grand? Maybe, but also like, oh God, that's going to be
I'd chase after through a couple of emails and
Are you going to pay 12 grand solicitor? I've worked with a lot of solicitors over the years on numerous different things, and they're at least $400 an hour. I've never had one come in under. I've had them draft, business contracts, things like that. So at the end of the day, are you going to pay $12,000 to a solicitor to pursue something for $10,000? No. For 150? Hell yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Should we pay?
Okay. Let's jump into the questions of the audience. We also got to jump into an ad on. We'll jump into the sponsored post. Sorry, advertise the people that pay us money to put their thing up on the internet.
The important people.
The people that are the smarties of the group. No, so we'll jump into our ad and then throw in any questions that you guys have. Because I feel like this conversation should have been like the creative way of making money in property, because you've gone left, right, and center. You've gone every avenue. You've gone down.
You just got to keep up.
Yeah, that's the hard thing, Jen. I'm struggling to keep up. Just keep going. There's always another layer to you. Well, we'll jump into this ad and then we'll dive on in. The amazing thing with commercial property investing is that in most cases, it's cash flow positive from day one, which means that you can drive those profits towards paying down the debt. There are instances with commercial property investing where you can actually have the property pay itself off over 10 years, which is absolutely crazy. With commercial property, you get massive net yields, so you can expect anywhere between 6 to 10%. And as we've seen in the current boom, these properties not only provide large cash flow, they do certainly grow wildly in value too. Now, with big rewards comes some risk, and this is why you should de-risk your investment as much as possible. And the way you do that is with expert due diligence. And this is why we highly recommend people hire professionals to help you along in your investing journey. Steve Polisi of Polisi Property is one such expert. Being a chartered mechanical and structural engineer in a past life, Steve draws on his analytical and mathematical skills to do that expert due diligence for you. With 6 years experience in the space, Steve has over 1,200 property transactions under his belt. He's the guy you want in your corner, crunching the numbers and finding the best properties in the best locations, along with ensuring that you avoid the mistakes. Steve has actually even written the book on commercial property investing in Australia. And not only is it a bestseller, I believe it to be the most comprehensive in commercial property investing on the market today. He's been generous enough to give us a massive discount for our audience of 50%. So use the code OZPROP, click the link below, get a copy today, and start learning and getting on your commercial property investing journey.
There we go. Steve's pretty creative with his beard stroking as well. You should get him to do the beards of Polisi or something. Could be another what would Steve do? But yeah, I don't know.
I
My mind
can't
just
say
went
I can compete with that one, unfortunately. If I could, I'd be worried.
Yeah. So you got any more? I got plenty of questions, Joe. But if I saw some good
Jump
crackers
in, mate.
in the comments.
So Jen,
oh, you go. Sorry.
yeah, well, no, you weren't saying anything, so I'm jumping in.
Okay.
What other creative strategies do you like the look of? Like, what other things have you checked out and been like, yeah, actually, this and the opportunity just hasn't presented itself, or you just haven't gone down that path because it's taken up with something else? Like, I don't know. I mean, like because of the money lending side of things.
I have a thing. I have a business thing, but I'm not going to disclose. Let's just say, because I'm all about win-win, solving problems, right?
Yeah.
That's, I've got to feel like I'm a good person, basically. When I look my daughter in the eye, I need to know that I'm a good person. Asset rich, like right here where we are now. Might not be next year, might not be 5 years' time, but right here, right now, a lot of people are going to come out of this boom asset rich. And we've got the inflation, rising cost of living, and so on the opposite side of that, we have potentially cash flow poor. So we've got asset rich and cash flow poor. As a single mum, I know when I went through my separation, the one thing I wanted was my family home, so my daughter could wake up in her bed. It was the most important thing to me, was keeping some form of stability. So I'm not saying everyone's in that bracket or anything like that. So it's about, I won't go into it anymore. I'll just leave it at that. But let's just say it's looking at current conditions coming out of this boom and what opportunities might be presented where I can create some win-wins. That's it.
Yeah, there's that's kind of like that platform that I was talking about. I don't think they got it in the end. I used to work for a legal company, and they engaged us asking a couple of questions about it, and I don't think it got through in the end. But essentially, they were taking equity. You could buy someone's equity. You could buy like 50% of their equity, so they could then go on that magical holiday and buy the caravan and stuff like that. But the problem is that since someone purchased their equity, it would be like an investment. So it's like a PPOR plus an investment mix. Becomes a bit challenging.
That is a tax nightmare. I'm actually a qualified accountant, but I've never practiced. So it's a tax nightmare. I wouldn't want to tread there. So I've run my process of my PPOR stuff all through my accountant too, by the way. I always do it by him. But that would be a tax nightmare. And I think the ties. So I like to get in, get out. Everyone's got their bit and they go away. They go their separate ways. I think ties, because you're then tied to, so imagine you as an individual. I'm not rubbishing the plan. I think there's merit in a lot of it, but the pitfalls that I would not do something like that is that you're kind of like under the, I don't know, if they want to sell and you don't want to sell, and it just seems like a nightmare. And also the taxation part of it. I mean, far out. How do you even do that? It just sounds horrible. But there's merit in the problem they were trying to solve, and that's
it kind of just sounds like a reverse model.
Joe's like, I'm trying to tick.
No, it's so it's exactly what you're saying. It is. It's so difficult to be able to do it, but I just know that that's like the problem that you're talking about. Asset rich, cash poor. It's the exact same thing. I've got a house. I haven't got any capital. I still want to live my life, but I don't want to. I can't get a mortgage because I'm 70 years old. But I want to go out and skydive. Never old people want to do.
I think Jen's passionate about kind of single mums, particularly from the sounds of it. Jen, if I'm picking up the vibes there.
I think it's not, because I'll never pull a poor me card in that respect. I just think single parents in general. So you've got to have double everything. You've got one kid, but you still got to have two houses. You still got to have two mortgages. You still got to have two electricity bills, two cars, two. Everything's two, if that makes sense. The only thing we get to split is daycare fees, thank goodness. And even that's a nightmare at the moment. Don't get me started. Yeah. So you've still got to have two of everything. So you start off at this point, and then as you separate, you still want to give your child the same standard of living that they had when you were together, because it's not their fault, right? Like that, why should they suffer? So you want to give that opportunity in both areas. So when it's not like a single mom or a female it's just that whole concept that, how I think that's what parents always, most parents want to do is to keep that standard of how you were raising your child, and not give them any less. And it's how to do that when you have to pay to, now you're paying a mortgage as a single income. I lost probably about $980,000 worth of property, plus, add other assets to that, $80,000 cash. I walked away with a few grand in the bank because I wanted to keep all the properties, because I knew that leverage was more important than money in the
inflation
bank,
was
but I just had to survive.
It has come.
So, yeah, so when you say that, Jeff, it's not, it's not anything for that, but I think I can understand the heartstrings of doing and being in that situation. And I think when you can understand a problem from the emotional aspect, I think you are able to better come up with solutions. Personally, that's all. And I don't pretend to play in worlds that I don't know, but I'm really happy to focus on worlds that I do know, if that makes sense, because I don't need to know everything. I just need to know, focus on what I do know, right?
Yeah, I think that's why you'd be such a good negotiator. Like if I was to hire a negotiator, like I feel like that empathy and that connection that you have with people is such a big overlooked component of it, and I think that's what you would do incredibly well. So if you're not opening a negotiation service, then I recommend that.
No, I'm definitely not. I'm too scared of people. I'm too scared of rejection at the moment. So let's hope my call helps me with that. I actually met for whole other reasons with a quite a prominent solicitor, like a very, in Sydney last week, and we were just talking about, I don't know, wages and nurses and things like that. And as a solicitor, she said empathy and compassion are two of the most underpaid skills that it's available to people. They're very underestimated and underpaid. Like they're big skills to have in certain environments. So I agree with you, Joe. I think there's value in everything, and I just think stick to what you know.
Well, you look at on your point there, and we'll get back to property, but I like to I like to stay on the point we're talking about. You look at nurses, you look at teachers, you look at sort of aged care nurse, which is kind of a nurse as well. They're some of the hardest working, and unfortunately probably not paid as well, anywhere near as well as they should be. And they're probably some of the people that, not all of them, but a lot of them have a lot of empathy in it, and kind of
undervalued.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's an interesting point. When once you are ready to branch out into that, if we're still running these Facebook lives, I'm sure we will be. But we'll get you back on. So, but let's get. So there's been some interesting questions in the audience, and I feel like there's a couple more questions I could have asked, but I want to be respectful of your time. You got your daughter, you got your night shift, all that sort of stuff that you do. And
she's at her dad's. That's why I planned it this way, Jeff.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
Freedom.
You
could be out celebrating with some, not celebrating, but sort of
Shiraz.
winding down with some Shiraz or something, which it's kind of nice to do. But let's get into some of the Q&A, because there has been some really awesome comments as well. So somebody said, stayed in an Airbnb over the weekend in Port Campbell. Nice piece of land. That's not a question, but I just thought it was cool. So this is Josh. So you're one of your number one kind of fans. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. But Josh said, would you be able to...
he's a mate. Josh is great.
So you don't have to answer that if you don't want. But yeah, have you utilized trusts or...
Not yet. So I think there will be a point in time. So I am very lucky in my day job. And so my two properties I have now are solely in my name. They're tier 2. One's just being refinanced. But the next one, I apparently, with third tier solely in my name, I have another 640K capacity. And then I'll get to that point. So where I go from there, I actually do have a registered company I've never used. It's like, I don't know, I just I was going to have an import business before I fell pregnant. So I have got a registered proprietary limited company, which I've kept open, which is linked to a trust. So I've gone through the process. I've got all the right financial advisors and accountants and everybody in place. So I have no issues with going there. I'm just not there yet.
You don't need to go there yet. Yeah,
it's a sort of space that that a lot of people want to know about, and we're going to be getting some people on that. I mean, not sort of spoiler alert or sort of teaser alert. We're going to be getting some super experts on in that space. Haven't even told Joe about this yet, but
you haven't even told me. Who are we getting?
You know one of them anyway, Joe.
My answer, I bet the answer is trusts are not the be all and end all of everything.
They're not, but yeah, there is opportunity there. That I even found out some stuff about it the other day. I didn't think you could pull equity, but apparently there are sort of ways that you can structure. So we're gonna get somebody on to talk about that and not give financial advice as well. So on to another accounting and tax question. All properties do you get stung for land tax or? This is a very specific question, though. Oh, you don't?
So I know you love your, you hate your off the plan or your townhouses, but I am lucky enough. So the value of my properties are quite high, but the land value is a lot lower, which has its pros and cons. But as far as land tax goes, it's not something I'm concerned about. And one's PPOR anyway, so I really only have two. So one's PPOR, one's IP.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? If it's a unit, if it's a townhouse, it's got a much smaller land to asset ratio, and you don't own as much land, and then it's not going to be as much.
You take positives where they are, right?
Take the wins when they're on offer for sure, because you don't know when your next win could be. This is more of a comment, but I just wanted to say that I'll actually look at who this person is. I think this is Tone. Like I just love how and Tone says he really admires you, Jen. I would not be able to handle the intensity and length of stress you experience. So he's taking his hat off. So good on you, Tone, mate. I love your.
He always wears a hat as well.
Does he? You've seen?
Has he always got? Has he actually literally got a hat on?
He always got his hat on.
I love it.
No, it's Tone. Who was it? Tone? Yeah.
Yeah, Tone.
Yeah. Thank you, Tone.
Tone Doan.
I'll probably die in 10 years or something crazy like that from all the stress, but I've got some herbs and some stuff that the ladies make up for me at the thing that de-stresses. I meditate. I go to the gym every day. There's ways to manage things like stress and those sorts of things. So, yeah.
Interesting. What's the biggest helper for stress? Like what's your go-to stress reliever?
Gym, mainly.
Okay.
Chocolate.
So exercising. Chocolate. Okay. Yeah. Oh man, the packets of chips on the couch late at night, I got to stop. I know that much, or I'll be having to go to the gym 3 times a day to counteract.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting though, because the chocolate potentially creates more stress, because then you got to think about going to the gym more. Maybe. I mean, not saying.
Plus, it has caffeine. Caffeine actually increases anxiety, so it's just education around all those sorts of things, I guess. Call me strange. I go to a lot of spiritual advisors. I do meditation. You probably can't see them. I've got all my stones and fancy things over there, and I don't know.
I'm going to throw in an completely off property question. Have you ever travelled to Nepal or Tibet or somewhere like that, or have you been to in those parts of the world?
Too busy spending money on properties, Jeff. That's the problem.
That's what you have to do.
When that's 50 plus. So when I'm retired at 50, I'll make a special effort to go somewhere like that just for you.
It's one of the most chaotic, like Kathmandu, which is the capital of Nepal, is one of the most chaotic, tranquil places I've ever been. You've got kind of motorbikes going everywhere, and it's just people, but it's not that crazy. It is okay, but you just but you go and speak to somebody and they're just so chilled, and you're like, how are you this calm in this environment? I was marveled, because you sort of we don't have it's just interesting. So to that meditation,
because it's obviously inner. That's the whole thing, Jeff.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You can't control your outside environment. You can only control your internals, and how you stress is internal. It's not external. If you let it be dictated by external means, then you can't control it, right? So despite what's going on out there, you need to be able to calm yourself here. So that's my theory.
Yeah, it's very correct. I've gotten off the meditation train. Oh, here we go. So Chaz is. I hope he doesn't mind me saying. I hope Joe doesn't mind me saying. He's another BA. He's reached out to me. He's a carpenter as well. Previous life, I think trade. So he said,
No
"How has
way.
meditation improved your life, or has it improved your life?"
It's the ability to be wherever you want to be, create space. I tend to create space because I feel sometimes I feel like I'm like things are closing in. I feel claustrophobic in life sometimes. So one of my favorite ones is actually creating space, and you're in a white room. You can't see any end to anything. I'm on a chair. I'm on my own. If it's overwhelming with people. So yeah, how has it improved? I've kind of always done it, to be honest. Like I've always worked 2 jobs. I think like I worked 7 days a week for 2 years, 2 separate jobs. Like this is me. I've always done this, if that makes sense. I've always worked. Well, like I was saying to you, Jeff, who loses $1 million worth of property, loses half, unfortunately time with their daughter. It's been back at work for 6 months. His life's, upheavaled like this. I kicked off a real estate business. I kicked off a property management business in that time and studied. So I finished my real estate certificate in that couple of months and kicked off a business. So it's just who I am, I guess. I maybe there's something wrong with me and I'm distracting from the real stresses in life. But yeah, meditation, I've done that forever. I manifest, I burn things on full moons, and I write down specifically what I want and I burn them on full moons. I'm full hippie.
Burn them on full moons. Oh,
the hippie
God.
accountant, if that can be 2 things at once, is an oxymoron for you.
There you go.
There's plenty of crazy accountants out there for sure.
There you go.
Number doctors.
I love that, Chaz. Your last name is Handyside, and you're, what did you say, a carpenter? Like he's
in a previous time. I think
he's Handyside. I love that.
Let's not pick at last names, Joe. Come on.
Mr.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, my last name. My last name is very close. My last name's a dash away from a very unfortunate event.
I was just pulling you up before you started to go up mine.
Well, no, you've put it as nothing here, so we can't see.
Yeah, this is a question that we haven't asked. Why didn't we ask this question? Like this has been floating in the conversation.
Yeah, because I keep going off on tangents.
Yeah.
Particular suburbs. I just think it's all good. So I've been looking out at Lake Mac. So I went out to Lake Mac today. I've got some.
Is Lake Macquarie Newcastle? Like what are the boundaries of Newcastle?
Well, the next. So, and we all know right now because of LGAs and stuff with COVID, right? Once upon a time, I would have a clue where the boundaries are. So I knew whether I could take the jet ski out on the lake or not. That's what I knew, or my paddleboard on the lake or not during COVID. That's so I think look, they just bought it. So basically, you've got Lake Mac, which is sort of the next one on from sort of Central Coast, Morisset that way. From anyone that knows those ones, I think it finishes so maybe just before Katara. Anyway, if anyone knows the areas, so Lake Mac, Newcastle, and then you've got the Hunter Valley region, Maitland on the other. Mm-hmm. That's the way I look at it. If I was to drive it, it's almost like a straight line through.
So
hidden gems
to buy?
I'm gonna look this up.
Okay,
I'm low. It's not that I don't want to share secrets. It's just because I have a lot of things in the works at the moment, and I put a lot of effort into it. It's not that I'm not a buyer's agent that can, like this is my area and this is what I do kind of thing. So I'm really low, but I'm looking at probably 2 suburbs in Lake Mac, and one in Newcastle.
Oh,
yeah, it is.
$1 million.
Depends what you're doing with it. Are you buying and holding and renting at low yield, or are you looking at what the market wants? Are you looking at what's selling? And how do you make money out of that? Like that, it's just always if you get stuck in that mind frame of, people can move areas and locations because they want to move with markets and there's better yield here and the lower buying price and all that. I support that. That's their process. But I know my market. It's basically, and I know there's always going to be money out here. It's how do I get that money out, and what are people buying? Those sorts of things. Are they families? Are they owner-ops? Looking at all those things, then you can get in an area that you've known and lived all your life. You can sort of start to build a plan around how do I maximize on that, I guess. So yeah, there's a couple in Lake Mac and probably 1, maybe 2 in Newcastle I'd consider.
Interesting. There we go. Where?
But she just said she's not going to tell us. Are you trying to ask the question a different way, Joe, to sneak out?
No, that's. I was actually speaking to a real estate agent about this just the other day. Like we were negotiating on like giving the details of like what the offer was, right? Like what offer have you currently got on the table? And if you just ask just casually, like, oh yeah, so what's the offer now? And then sometimes, definitely not all the time for the good agent, not all the good agents, like, but they'll be like, oh yeah, so it's just this. What? Sorry, what? You just massively missed
up. Tell you that though, Joe. Jeez, man.
They're not meant to tell you that, but if you say it casually enough and just in conversation, you're talking about whatever. All of a sudden they'll be like, "Oh yeah, no, it's crazy, isn't it? 750,000." I know. I'm like, "Wow, that's amazing." Yeah, it's listed at 700. Wow. Okay, great. So you've done really well. So, blah,
you
blah,
get them
blah.
talking, anyway. Joe. You get them talking. It's kind of like you watch it in a courtroom, right? They ask or in an interrogation, right? They ask all the easy ones. So they get the saying yes. They get you saying no. You get and then they just throw one in there, and people are sometimes they're just going to throw it out there. So, I like the style.
But Joe, could it? I mean, I've totally ruined Joe's tactic. I'm sorry, Tucker. But what would you? How do you? So say an agent gives you a number, and Jen, I'm interested in your thoughts on this because you've probably seen it as well. How do you know that is actually genuine? They're not just kind of pulling your leg. How do you know that, Joe? Or do you just?
You don't.
Okay. Yeah. Or are there ways that you can validate that there is that offer on the table?
I don't know. Well, yeah, there's ways to validate, but you're not going to get those ways. Like you can get, hey, can you send me through a signed contract? In this hot market, you're not going to get that. Yeah, that's not going to happen. But to be honest, you have to just kind of go with your gut on if they're actually telling you the truth. A lot of agents, this is one of the big things actually on negotiation is people aren't scumbags as much as you think they are. Like in the agent world, there's actually a lot of nice people that are just trying to do a really good job, and a lot of them are just protecting their vendors and they're just trying to get the best price. They're not necessarily going out there and saying, oh, actually, I'm going to lie to you and say it's actually at 770 when I have an offer of 750. They will use words and phrases around trying to say there's actually a whole heap of pressure on this property at the moment. I've got 3 offers in at the minute. If you really want to be competitive, you're going to have to be over 770. Okay, so does that mean you have an offer at 770? I'm not saying that I have an offer over at 770, but if you want to be competitive, you're going to have to be over that. So you just got to kind of understand the language around it and not get too. Not many people lie to you though, but if they do, you can feel it. Yeah, I don't know, Jen. What's your experience actually? Because I feel like you're very intuitive.
You'll feel it if someone's not telling you the truth. You feel it. So I remember there was one property before I bought at Cardiff. I missed out on a property who I ended up buying this place from. I think in the end, and we bought somewhere else in Cardiff. But he was like, I've got a lot of relationships with people as well. So, and I would never put them in that awkward, you maybe, I don't know, Joe, it might probably be different, but I would never put that in that anyone in that situation where I was, sort of pressuring them to give information that they weren't legally able to or something like that. Like especially if it's someone I like. If it's someone I didn't know, and they give you the info, so be it. But I would hate to put someone that I've built a relationship with in that situation. But I would know any local agents here, I would just know because they wouldn't stuff me around because they wouldn't be going, it just wouldn't be worth their while. There'd be too many losses on the other side. But I think it's more, you just have that relationship, so you already have the trust. And I've never bought in a market outside here. So for me personally, I've had people say, hey, Jen, you need to come above here. But I've also ended up in a silent auction with people that I'm very close with that they're just by the book, and that's fine. I'm not going to pressure them because I don't want to. The relationship's more important than a house, right? Because that relationship can lead to several houses or deals down the track. I don't want to ruin it over that one house.
Love it. I think we should end it on a negotiation tip there. That was good. I like it.
I don't think I'm good at negotiation. I didn't know I was. You're the only person that's ever said that. I feel like there might be an undiscovered thing that I might be good at. I don't know.
Called empathy.
I always thought I was just an accountant as far as I knew. Good with numbers, good with project management.
An awesome accountant. Not just an accountant. Yeah. Sorry, I have this kind of story around the using the word just, because I used to when I worked at Penrith City Council, there was this lovely lady,
Penrith City Council.
probably 20, as a trainee in the finance section, back before I even started uni. And she said, I said, oh yeah, just a secretary. And she said, no, that's incorrect, Jeff. You can't, this person's not just a secretary. So every time, and that stuck with me all the time. Anytime she said, oh, I'm just this, I'm like, no, you're not just that. You're a lot more than that. So yeah, no, sorry, you're telling Charles.
Love it, Jeff. And also saying it at the beginning of your sentences undermines what you're saying as well. You're undermining it before you even say it. So I just want to put across this. You're undermining what you're saying. Just freaking own it. Don't. Oh, I just want to own it.
I think the thing that I've learned is that our hidden superpowers are the things that we're completely unaware of, and a lot of people are aware. They might not tell us, but I think Joe's identified that you are a great negotiator.
I need to believe in what I'm doing. You should have seen me when I worked for Amy Insurance trying to upsell. Hated it. If I felt the person didn't need it, I couldn't sell it. So
that's what makes you a great salesperson.
My gut needs to feel that it's really a win-win and in the best interest of them. If I win, so be it. So yeah, if there's ever opportunities that it is definitely a win-win, I'm all for it.
100%. I love it. Well, Jen, thank you very much for being on this live session. And also thank you for being part of this group and sharing so much value throughout the past 2 years. And yeah, is there anything that we haven't covered off that you'd like to chat about? Go on, sorry. Go. Look at this.
I want to say thank you to you guys, because running this group is really important. It's a place that people can go that's it's a safe place. They can get advice. They can, as I said, I'm having family, and I'm sure there's a lot of people like me. So thank you guys for doing all the work in the background, all the admins and all that sort of stuff, and creating a place for us like-minded investors to share ideas and ask questions. And yeah, so thanks, guys. I appreciate the effort you put in.
Yeah, big shout out to Jeff and Nick.
Yeah, and yourself as well, Joe. You kick. Oh yeah, I suppose you're not gonna thank yourself, but thanks as well, of course, Joe. And really thank you as well, Jen. You are, I suppose, an inspiration for a lot of people. And here we go. It's great live.
Oh, Triple J, what a
J. We had
this on it.
Yeah.
Good work.
Thanks for all just in the community, and not just Oz Property Investors, Property Talk Australia. I don't mind mentioning people of other groups, and just all the groups of the interwebs or the Facebook webs, whatever they call it. I love that you're not afraid to sort of have some input, whether it be agreeing or sort of going against somebody's opinion, which is done very respectfully as well, which people struggle with. And you're just an amazing sort of motivated and dedicated human being. So good on you for doing that, and incredibly humble as well is something. So thanks for being along for the journey with us, and hopefully you're here for many more years, and we're here for many more years as well. I'm sure we will be.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys, and thanks everyone for listening. I hope there's some value that people got from this with
so much value.
With us. I enjoyed it, so I'm happy.
People are loving it. Amazing. Great. Let's go buy a property. See you guys later. Have a good one.
Bye. Thanks, guys.